From photos of vintage Stations of the Cross from Louisiana, the project looked fairly straightforward. But in transit 1,700 miles from the Gulf to Ottawa, Canada, the unthinkable happened, and the stations were catastrophically damaged. What was to be a lot of gentle sanding, some plaster repairs and repainting became one of our most challenging restoration projects ever. Okay, I can already feel by opening station number 9 by lifting it up that it's broken in the middle. And it is definitely in very poor shape. After the heartbreaking opening of the package, our first stage is to try to secure the stations, especially those with the most severe damage. Some of these have already had quite a number of pieces put together, and I'm trying to rematch the framework here and onto the edge. And then what's going to happen is we will secure this from the back and replaster and then get on with the actual task of restoration. Gluing and bracing came first. Part of the challenge in restoring these stations was to find all the small pieces and to figure out exactly how they fit into the original sculpture. This section is actually missing, so it will be resculpted, but you can see that epoxy was used to reattach some of these segments. You can see the epoxy inside this broken area. Next, it's going to be smoothed over with new plaster and then an epoxy sculpting material to fix these edges and put those lines back in. The extent of damage varies among the stations. So in this one, number 12, I'm going to show you different kinds of work that needed to be done. So this paint is peeling and the plaster underneath is very dry. So this paint will just chip off even with the use of your hand, but it will be properly sanded down. All of the paint that is chipping and peeling here will be removed, some new plaster added on. Part of this top cross holder area is supposed to come around and it's been broken off. So what I'll end up doing is cutting that off and then adding on a replacement, a new piece, which will go onto the top. This was molded from another one of the Stations of the Cross using a rubber mold system and fresh plaster. And once the rubber mold is firmly applied to the area that we want to cast, we'll just let it sit for a few minutes. It's going to get hard, and then when I peel it off, hopefully all of the detail from the inside will be there and ready for us to cast some new plaster. So having removed the upper part of the housing, I'm going to start by trying to reassemble the main part of this scene, repairing the brakes here, replacing this piece, doing some corrections to here, and then reattaching up along the top. And then along this edge, I'll be using some epoxy and new plaster and plaster-laden cloth to try to recreate and strengthen the structure to make it ready for the restoration. While the epoxy is beginning to set as we recreate the strength of the frame, I'm looking now at some of those missing pieces. And the idea is if you can get a really good firm fit, it's ready to be able to be epoxied and then a new layer of plaster put on the back. If it lines up on the back, it's going to line up properly on the front. As a guide, I'm using some photos that were sent to us of the stations before they were shipped to us and damaged in transit. As you saw earlier, there was a big bag of chunks and pieces. Many of those have now been reconstructed. I've added new plaster to the back. Now the whole structure is fairly secure. It was quite wobbly. These pieces and so on were missing. So the next stage is going to be for me to reattach the upper part of the framework. And then when that is done, there will be some gaps and spaces, for example, along here, which I'll fill from the back and add new plaster. But once the full structure is put together, it will be in condition that I will be able to begin the actual restoration work. You can't just pour new plaster into a hole in the front. So from behind, we apply plaster-laden cloth, which is going to harden. That allows us to recreate a backing and shore it up with fresh plaster. The plaster cloth is hardened, the glue has done its job, and once the back plaster is poured, the whole structure is safer to work on. More plaster cloth to close off that gap between the scene and the front of the housing. And then more liquid plaster is applied in very small batches because it dries and hardens very fast when it touches older, dry, existing plaster. The next stage in the reconstruction of this particular station, number 2, is the entire faceplate here. Essentially, the whole scene has broken off from the framework. The frame itself has been broken into a number of pieces. They're not put back together with the use of epoxy or sculpting wire as necessary. The next stage for us is going to be to fill in all new plaster here, smooth it out, fix all of these edges, and as you can see on the back, that main scene had to be re-secured with new plaster put onto the back. When repairing breaks, some are just so severe that patching would leave the structure vulnerable to easy breakage. So the best option is to cut out that section and replace it with a new solid piece, and after securing, inject liquid plaster into any gaps, and then the smoothing process as quickly as possible to reduce the amount of sanding that's still going to lie ahead. It's labor intensive and it takes patience, but all the damaged lines, ridges, edges have to be properly smoothed out. Very old plaster can become weak and so dry that you have to handle it very carefully until you've rebuilt enough to know it won't just start breaking off and complicating the project further. And we try to keep the lines consistent with the right Dremel tool for flat lines, and for carving new straight lines to make the sides match each other and be consistent among all 14 stations. Broken edges are a challenge because they have to withstand a possible bump, but in the end they still have to be artistically completed. Because the color is so blotchy and uneven, in the video this is going to look a lot rougher than it is, but it's actually been redone with an epoxy-based sculpting compound, and that whole edge has been rebuilt. It's going to still be smoothed down a little bit, but on these edges, this whole area at the top has been replastered actually. Some of the sections here had to be rebuilt along the top. This entire upper ledge also had to be rebuilt. Same thing up on the far side. And again, along the bottom here, these pieces were re-sculpted, the lines put back in, all of this sanded smooth and then coated with a thick gel primer called Zinsser Peel Stop. Lots of patience and lots of sanding all the way up to a 400 grit paper will smooth the surfaces. 10 of the 14 stations arrived with broken or smashed cross holders like this one. So reluctantly, out came the handsaw to cut off what would be better replaced than repaired. Sawing off the straight edge was just the first step for each station. The pointed drop was next to go. Then the rotary tool to open up the surface area and get ready to add the molded replacement. Once that was attached, the gaps would be injected and the whole outer surface would have to be sanded smooth. When the new crosses were custom fit to each station, they were ready for Pauline to start custom blending colors for the prototype in consultation with Marie, the designer in Louisiana.
This is the Sherwin-Williams palette that was provided by Marie, and this sample matches the background wall inside the church. So I painted the bristle board the same color so I could see what the station looks like against it. The whole station is two-toned to give it a stone look, and each individual figure is painted 3 times to create 3-dimensional depth. Some of the detail was lost because of the aging plaster, so I went back in with a fine brush to suggest that detail again. The background behind the figures is a bas-relief, and I'm using a lighter shade of the existing color for the scenery to be more visible. The first coat of sealant primer gives me a better visual of how smooth the surface is and which sculpted parts protrude from the background. After base coating with yellow comes the first of 3 coats of gold around the trimwork of the frame. Spouncing onto the molded edging gives a texture and maintains the look the sculptors created a century ago. These 2 colors will give depth to the sculpted figures, and the lighter stone look makes them stand out from the background. So how much is the right amount of spouncing? It really comes down to experience and artistic license. That white background is primer, It improves the adhesion for the real color selections, and the edges can be painted with larger brushes in some parts and very fine brushes in some of those tiny corners. You'll notice how the depth of the sculpted work is improved by the contrasting colors between the figures and the background. The colors are mixed based on the palette of the church interior, which was being renovated after severe hurricane damage. Every cross was damaged to some degree, so we cast new ones and applied colors to make them match the stations and complement the church interior.
What arrived in Ottawa with heartbreak was finally completed, and all 14 stations of the cross successfully survived travel and customs inspectors to get back home to the beautiful Pelican State.
Thanks for watching. We invite you to see the other restorations on our channel, and we hope you'll like, share, and subscribe.